As the countdown to Election Day continues, we track our region's big political stories for you, and some of those races you've heard less about. And we celebrate one of our Metro's biggest success stories this week is one of our professional sports franchises finally doing something right on and off the field. Hello, I'm Nick Haynes, and good to have you with us again on the program that goes beyond the soundbite and takes you behind the headlines making news in Kansas City, dissecting those stories around the cozy confines of our Week in Review table this week. The Kansas City Star's chief political correspondent and the host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske. From News Radio 98.1 FM KMBZ, Scott Parks. The Star's nationally syndicated columnist, Mary Sanchez, and Kansas City Star reporter, political columnist, and blogger Dave Helling. We start this week in Kansas, where the news just keeps getting better, it seems, for Republicans and more worrisome for Democrats. According to new figures just released from the Kansas Secretary of State's office, voter registration numbers among Republicans in the Sunflower State are now at an historic high, while the number of registered Democrats continues to plummet. In fact, there are 45,000 fewer registered Democrats in Kansas than there were during the last presidential election. According to these latest numbers, Democrats now make up just a little more than 25% of the state's registered voters. Steve, what is the response of state Democratic Party officials to these latest numbers?
Well, they're a little discouraged, as you might imagine. The disparity between Republicans and Democrats at an all-time record high in Kansas. Not a good sign for Democrats. They've got to find a way to begin to turn this whole puppy around, and they haven't found it yet. I think the story here, Nick, is that Republicans realize this is one of the fundamental building blocks of American politics. You got to keep registering members in your party to keep growing strength. Republicans have been all about that in recent years, and they're not letting up.
It's going to be discouraging, though, for Democrats after 4 years, though, that their actually numbers are going down, even with the population growth, Mary.
Absolutely, but it does sound like, as Steve was saying, that they only have themselves to blame. It's like hard work pays off in politics. Yeah. I am curious, though, to see more of a breakdown of some of those numbers, because I wondered, where was the new people that were coming? What was their demographics? Is it more women? Is it more men? Is there a racial? Is there an age? And the unaffiliated, those numbers were really up. So are there a lot more people waiting around in the middle that could possibly be grabbed by either party?
And I would just add to that, and I think I'm echoing something I read that Steve had written earlier this week, and it has been, at least over the last 20 years in Kansas, a Democratic governor, Republican, Democrat, Republican.
Yeah.
And again, to echo what I think Steve wrote earlier this week, because of the change in the numbers, and as dramatic as they are, you're looking at a very strong possibility that revolving door of Democrats and Republicans, Democrats, Republicans in the governor's office in Kansas is about to be broken, and may be broken for a long, long time to come.
Couldn't some of this tally, though, of voter registrations for Republicans and this diminishment of Democrats be also what is really a strategic kind of decision, though, Dave? Because aren't there a lot of Democrats in the state of Kansas who decide, because of the overwhelming number of Republicans, that they actually change their party affiliation they can vote in the primaries?
Well, right. I think the primary
Kansas
did have something to do with this, primarily because most of the competitive races for the legislature this year were in the Republican Party. And since you have to register as a Republican to vote in the Republican primary, that's the responsibility for some of the boost on the Republican side, the GOP side. But the thing that's most worrisome in Kansas is the Democratic drop. Worrisome if you're a Democrat, obviously, because it suggests, as Steve just said, that they are not doing the blocking and tackling of party building in the state. And if you don't do that, you cannot present candidates to voters, from the governor to statewide races to even local state, House, and Senate races. And if you can't provide a viable alternative, you give people even less of an incentive to register in your party, and it becomes sort of a vicious circle. And I think that's what the Democrats really may be in the middle of right now, to their detriment.
Even Democrats admitting, Joan Wagner, the party chair, to me, that only maybe 4,000 or 5,000 Democrats switched to the Republican Party to vote in those primaries and haven't come back yet. They're trying to get them back, but the number is very small. And something that Scott said is so right here. the history of Kansas going back to the mid-'60s, every few years, Democratic governor followed by a Republican, followed by a Democrat. It's been going on for decades now in Kansas. Republicans see that, folks who are affiliated with Governor Sam Brownback, and they want that to end. They want to see a permanent Republican majority going forward for decades. That's what, competitive political parties do. Nothing wrong with that. They want to keep their people in power for a long time to come. Democrats are way behind in that race right now.
And obviously this has implications for this election. Obviously this is a diminishment of Democrats, 11,000 from the last presidential election. And we're also seeing in Johnson County, for instance, even in advanced voting, fewer people bothering to even advance vote this time around, Dave Helling, than the last presidential election?
Well, part of that is because you just don't have the kind of enthusiasm we saw. Remember in 2008, remember the Kansas caucuses? Thousands of, there was a lot of just emotion in that vote that you don't see this year. But the other thing to keep in mind is people really, and your party affiliation doesn't matter in the general election, but the ability of people to sort of focus on the Republican versus Democratic demographic in Johnson County particularly is very, very difficult. And then you have Republicans sort of muddying the waters, vote for the Democrat. It's just not a clean shot, and so people tend to stay out of the race in that situation.
I would just add, not only do I think the numbers, the registration numbers are probably very discouraging for Democrats, but it was only 4 years ago when we had names in the Democratic Party like Kathleen Sebelius, Mark Parkinson, Paul Morrison even, and Dennis Moore. I would challenge anyone, Joe Blow off the street, to name one prominent Democrat in the state of Kansas who has a legitimate shot at gaining a statewide office, and I don't think you can do it.
Do you agree with that, Mary?
Absolutely. It is. I mean, it's almost about star power to a certain extent, and it's somewhat a negative commentary on society today that you would need that, but it's very true, and they haven't had it for a while.
Staying with Kansas for a moment, Kansas Governor Sam Brownback was out of the state this week. He was spotted in Ohio Tuesday campaigning for his former rival, Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney. Brownback was on a 5-city tour of northeastern Ohio, stumping for the Romney-Ryan ticket. Brownback, I thought, endorsed Texas Governor Rick Perry in this presidential race. He's now campaigning for Romney. And would anybody know who he was in Ohio, Scott?
Who he was?
Yes.
Or who he is.
Or where he was.
Oh, who he is? No, I don't think. I don't mean to be the eternal skeptic here, but and I like Governor Brownback. I've known him for almost 20 years, but I would happen to think, or would at least be inclined to think, that this has more to do with Sam Brownback than it does with Mitt Romney. I think he has had designs on another run for the presidency for a long time. And obviously Ohio would play well if he were to ever win the Republican nomination, which I sincerely doubt he ever would. But no, I don't think this is as much about Mitt Romney as it is about Sam Brownback.
Yeah, part of the reason I think that the Romney people would want Sam Brownback to go to Ohio is because of Brownback's bona fides on abortion, which is a huge issue for some voters, particularly in Catholic parts of Ohio, and the idea that he might be able to enthuse those voters. But as we know, abortion is an extraordinarily ticklish issue for the Republican Party this year. And so that my guess is that he went in a bit under the radar for that reason, that he can excite a certain part of the electorate in Ohio, but not sort of a mass appeal for people, and that's why they sent him there.
I agree with all this. There's nothing unusual here about the fact that Governor Brownback is out. given how close this presidential race is, Nick, this is an all-hands-on-deck moment for members of both parties.
In Ohio, particularly.
In Ohio, particularly. Lots of governors, U.S. senators, members of Congress leaving their states, doing whatever they can to help out around the country right now.
One web user, one commenter saying, who is footing the bill for this when Brownback campaigns in Ohio for Romney? Hopefully not Kansas taxpayers. Who does foot the bill?
I don't know that I
happens?
haven't checked, but almost certainly the campaign, the Romney campaign, will pay for his travel,
right.
and that's, almost certainly that's what's going on.
Absolutely.
Okay. Coming up next on Week in Review, much ado about nothing, or a new low in the civility of campaigns. The local election campaign story making national news this week.
Republican U.S. Senate candidate in Missouri, Todd Akin, is making headlines again.
This time, Democrats are angry about a remark that Todd Akin made at a campaign event over the weekend, in which he compared McCaskill to a dog.
She goes to Washington, D.C., and it's a little bit like, one of those dog, Fetch. And she goes to Washington, D.C. and gets all of these taxes and red tape and bureaucracy and executive orders and agencies, and she brings all of this stuff and dumps it on us in Missouri.
While CBS was just one national news organization picking up on the Aiken dog story, an Aiken campaign spokesman amplified the story even further shortly afterwards, tweeting, "If Claire McCaskill were a dog, she'd be a bullshit Sue." But as Aiken critics blasted the Republicans' campaign as uncivil and reaching to new lows, writing in the Star this week in a political column titled "Focus Less on Gaffes, More on Issues," Dave Helling asks, are we getting too caught up in verbal clumsiness and snarky barbs than on the substantive policy differences that differentiate candidates? Now, you wrote that column before the bullshitsu comment was happening, okay. But does this qualify as part of that sort of verbal clumsiness?
Yes.
Or should we be really concentrating on the political differences between these candidates?
I think it is fair to say that had this exchange taken place absent the Todd Aiken mistake over legitimate rape, that would have gotten, I think it would have gotten local attention. We would have written about it. Scott might have talked about it on his radio show, but it would not have been on the CBS Morning News. And I think what I was trying to write about is, to the extent we focus on these verbal gaffes and not on the very real differences between these two candidates in Missouri, perhaps we make a bit of a mistake. And I was just trying to say, and that's true on both sides of the political aisle, by the way, that sometimes particularly in the world we're in now, Nick, with Twitter and Facebook, where things just accelerate out of control so quickly that sometimes the issues get lost.
I would just add very quickly, if I could, the problem for Todd Aiken, among other things, is every time the Republican Party starts to get a little bit of momentum, starts to veer the discussion back on the economy and the unemployment rate, Todd Aiken has this uncanny ability to throw a verbal grenade right into the middle of the fight and draw the attention back on himself. But I would make the point, if Claire McCaskill, check that, if Todd Aiken's opponent had been a man, this would have gotten a lot less attention. The fact that she's a woman, I think, makes it even more sensitive.
Well, and the rationale why, though, is that any time that you go around comparing women to dogs, you're really close to hitting on that B word. And that's just, I mean, that's part of the reality of it. And then the man, I mean, didn't he apologize to dogs, not to Claire later?
Right, well, let me just say, right.
It's verbal slapstick, though. It's not worth it. And I think, you know, for particularly columnists, it's, you know, what is it worth? It's worth, you know, definitely they need to report it from the news side, but does it really inherently say anything more other than this was an idiot move?
Well, yes, and I agree with all of that. I think it does raise a question, though, that to piggyback on Scott's comments, if you can't run a campaign any better than Todd Aiken has been running this campaign, I think that begins to speak a little bit to competence for office. Scott's right. This has been one verbal gaffe after another. They can't get the discussion off of two words, legitimate rape, which has been haunting them now since mid-August. Part of that is due to his fellow Republicans piling on, urging Aiken to get out of the race. Part of it is because the media, you know, it sort of did go nuts here, but it is one thing after another. You can't run a campaign.
But his campaign would argue that it is about the media liking to focus on these issues of, you know, it is easier to look at things like these verbal gaffes, and the public likes these because they're easier to concentrate on than more substantial issues like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare reform. Very complicated to get your arms around.
Right.
And isn't this much more easier to concentrate on?
And just so I'm clear, again, I think local reporting and statewide reporting would have mentioned the dog remark and should have. It's legitimate. It's part of what all my colleagues have described as a pattern, particularly with Todd Aiken. But you would not have seen it in the New York Times. You would have not have seen it in CBS News unless it was juxtaposed against the rape comment, because the whole caricature now of Aiken is a guy who puts his foot in his mouth, ladylike, dog, you know, whatever. And so you get on the national stage really a caricature of a candidate and not really a look.
A few weeks ago, you did a series in the Kansas City Star. It was on a weekend. It was about entitlement reform, and it was this huge section, very well done, that laid out all of what the issues were there. I mean, the comments that you saw online for that were much, much shorter, fewer comments that came from those stories.
Well, no question
than you're
about
going to get for these types of stories. Isn't that the case? So
Absolutely.
You are rewarded as a reporter for stories that are going to be about these kinds of issues than ones that are going to help your readers look at much more taxing, complicated types of subjects.
There's no question about that. Having said that, though, I would argue that we've given readers and any voter in this campaign can go online and find all kinds of information about Akin, how he votes, Claire McCaskill, how she votes. I think people get it here in Missouri that these are two very different politicians coming from two very different places and how they view the big issues facing this country. I think that information is out there. But yes, you know, when these comments get made, there's a little sex appeal to them, and we
But
hop
the
on
other
them.
thing to keep very quickly to keep in mind is it's not clear that a comment like that is going to change many votes. It isn't as if people who were going to vote for Todd Akin see the dog quote go, nope, I'm voting for Claire now. I mean, it just doesn't happen. It does feed into the narrative of him being unable to run a campaign without sticking his foot in his
you happen
mouth.
to be on a program where you do get audience feedback, and did it change anybody's point of view?
I don't think so. To what Dave said, if you're an undecided voter this late in the game, then you're not paying attention. And to the other remarks, and I read the story that Steve wrote about Social Security, et cetera, and it was terrific. But I also, it's sort of sport for me to get on the Star's website and check the most read stories that they have off on the side. With no offense to your great story, it didn't chart in the top 10. Todd Akin calling Claire or comparing Claire McCaskill to a dog was number 2 the day after. That was because it's entertaining, it's funny, and it's sport, and it's political sport. Whereas I think when people start getting into the minutia of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, I mean, they just glaze over. It's so complicated. This, comparing a woman to a dog, is very simple.
There was a front-page headline,
If inappropriate.
in the Star this week. Missouri ignored in 2012 presidential campaign. During the entire presidential campaign, the report began, Barack Obama has not stepped foot in Missouri once to campaign, and Republican hopeful Mitt Romney stopped over only briefly at KCI to refuel his plane and have catered barbecue delivered to his staffers on board. Not one rally or event featuring Obama or Romney, and neither candidate has run any ads specifically targeting Missouri. If you live in Kansas, you expect this kind of treatment, but Missourians are not used to getting the cold shoulder like this. Why, Steve?
Well, because Missouri's not in play this time around, Nick, not by any stretch. Almost every poll I've seen shows Mitt Romney ahead by 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 points in Missouri. Huge lead. And because we have this electoral college system, way of electing presidents, why spend money in a state that you don't have a chance of winning?
But it seems odd, though, for many people, Mary, because when you look back 4 years ago, the president lost Missouri to John McCain by just 3,903 votes. It was the slimmest margin of any state in the nation.
Absolutely.
So why are they writing it off so completely?
How quickly they forget. We've been forgotten, and now it's, we've reignited the flyover land. But I think it's just the state of where the politics is today. And I mean, they follow those polls. They know what's going on.
And again, we've talked about this on the show, but in 2008, there was a virtual tie between the Republican and the Democrat. But Barack Obama won the nation by 7 percentage points. That means that he starts behind about 7 points in this state. So if it's even nationally, it's probably +7 in Missouri for the Republican now. That's just the way the math works. I think they recognized that quite early on, and they decided, both of them, to run for governor of Ohio, which is much more important than it is in the state of Missouri.
I think we're lamenting the fact somehow that we're not getting any of the political advertising attention. I just got back from a weekend in Iowa. And let me tell you,
Yeah, you don't want it.
thank God we're being ignored. Every commercial, I was watching a Nebraska football game, 3 hours. I had to put up with this stuff. Every commercial break was nonstop. This guy is the devil. This person is risky. This person wants to kill children. This person hates dogs. And by the end of the game, I was so happy it was over. And then to come back to Kansas City and turn on the television and actually see real advertising was quite the
The
pleasure.
fascinating question is whether the lack of enthusiasm over the presidential race in Missouri will impact the other races, particularly for the Senate, because the enthusiasm that you would expect for, say, an Obama might not be there for Claire McCaskill this time. On the other hand, Obama is very unpopular in Missouri, and so his absence here might end up helping the Democrat as well. We don't really know how that's going to play out.
It is amazing how fortunes have shifted. You know, the health care plan, obviously extremely unpopular in Missouri. The level of antipathy towards Barack Obama really is remarkable in Missouri. You know, just 4 years ago, just down the street from your studios here, Nick, 31st and Gillum, Obama headquarters, that thing was humming just about 24/7 all the time. Today, it's empty, not much activity at all. That enthusiasm has just drifted away out of Missouri this time.
Sure.
The United States Senate race in Missouri is sucking the oxygen out of coverage of many of the region's other political races. Before Election Day, we've been spotlighting those other campaigns. This week, we tracked the Missouri 4th District seat, currently held by Republican Vicky Hartzler, who replaced longtime Washington veteran Ike Skelton, now completing her first term in Congress. Hartzler is running against Cass County prosecutor Teresa Hensley. Now, Dave Helling, you write this week that this is the most competitive House race in our region this election season, yet most of us have never heard anything about it. What makes this race so tight?
Well, it's not necessarily that tight, we'll see, but it's the most
Just
competitive.
relatively speaking,
Yes, the
compared
other race,
to the other races that we
sixth,
have
the
for
fifth,
Congress.
the other races are pretty much projected to be landslides or close to landslides. The other thing to keep in mind in the 4th, which I wrote about, is that the district has changed. It added Boone County, which is Columbia, Missouri. That's typically a more Democratic-leaning county, and about 1/4 of the votes in the entire district will come from that county. And so I think the Hensley people think if they can run up some pretty good margins there, they can overcome whatever advantage the incumbent Hartzler would have in the more rural counties. We'll just see if that theory of the race is right. That's why you haven't seen it in Kansas City. They're spending all their time and money really in Boone County, a little bit in Warrensburg, in Cass County to a degree. Kansas City is a very inefficient advertising market for that.
What's the big issue that divides these two candidates, Steve?
Well, I think fiscal issues right down the board, how to approach the taxes and that kind of thing, Nick. You know, Teresa Hensley figures that the most vulnerable time for any incumbent is their first re-election bid. That's what she's gambling on. But what she's betting on there, but what she needs is a little national push, a national sweep of momentum coming across the prairie to give her a little boost in this race. She's not getting it, which makes it a tough challenge for her, I think.
And I would just add, I find it remarkable that in a city like ours with so many different congressional districts, that there is only one that truly is on the map of competition. The Republicans can't seem to get a legitimate candidate to run against Emanuel Cleaver. Democrats can't get a legitimate candidate to run against Sam Graves. And we were talking earlier about the discouragement that Democrats in Kansas are facing. Look at the 3rd district. They couldn't even get a candidate on the ballot to run against Kevin Yoder. There's no competition in the congressional districts here.
Well, you mentioned then Sam Graves. What about him? Haven't we heard anything from Sam Graves this election season in the Missouri 6th District Republican congressman? Is he running opposed this election cycle, or is it that the Aiken-McCaskill race simply sucking all the publicity from this campaign?
Well, part of the problem in the 6th is that, and this goes to what Scott was talking about, one of the reasons these races aren't competitive is redistricting. The districts were drawn to make sure that incumbents were protected. That happened for the Democrat Emanuel Cleaver. It happened for Sam Graves, whose district now stretches from St. Joseph, Missouri, to Hannibal, Missouri, between the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. That makes it very difficult for Kyle Yarber or other challengers to really
Here's a photo of Sam Graves' opponent, Kyle Yarber, as Dave Helling pointed out. He's a Gladstone High School teacher. What do we know about him?
He's a teacher. I've chatted with him. He's pretty much a traditional Democrat, but I think he understands that it's a tall order in a very rural district to get his message out.
And what Dave just said about redistricting has got to change, Nick, moving forward.
And finally, we leave you this week with scenes from Livestrong Sporting Park, where Sporting Kansas City defeated Philadelphia this week before a sellout crowd to capture the Eastern Conference title, while Metro sports fans lament the fortunes of the Royals and the Chiefs. Is this a franchise, Mary, that is finally doing something right on and off the field?
I would absolutely say so, and I actually even brought my hat.
Oh, shameless.
I know. No, I think it's good to have a team that you can support. They're run wonderfully. How they manage themselves as a team, how the team members have managed themselves with fans. Some of it is, the level of sport that it is. They don't have the massive fan base in some ways that like a Chiefs or the Royals would have. But they're wonderful. I mean, they really interact with their fans, and that is paying off for them.
Scott.
I'm a season ticket holder to Sporting, and I think the thing that is totally different between Sporting, and no, they're not on the same level yet as the Royals and the Chiefs, and may never be, but there is a complete 180 difference between the way Sporting treats its fans and the way the Chiefs treat their fans.
And what is that?
Well, I think, to use an old adage, they remember where they came from. Yep. And I think the Chiefs have forgotten, quite frankly. Sporting remembers, because this is the old Wizards franchise, and I can still remember me and 5,000 of my best friends being at Arrowhead Stadium on a cold Saturday night, and now to go to Livestrong and there are 19,000 people there. I think they're thrilled with it, but I think they still remember the nights of 5,000 fans in the stands.
And we haven't pointed out yet that they're winning. Which is an amazing thing to behold in a city like this where everyone else is losing. Nick, the level of enthusiasm at that park when I've been out there, it is just off the charts. And what a blast, a place to hang out. It's just a ball.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers, the Star's Steve Kraske, who you can also hear weekday mornings at 11 as host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, and Mary Sanchez, national syndicated columnist at the Star. Dave Helling writes about all sorts of important things at the Star. And Scott Parks, 50% of Dana and Parks, 2 to 6 on News Radio 98.1 FM KMBZ. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.